Hello and welcome.
AutoCAD 1-2D Drafting, Boston Architectural College. And this week we're going to be moving on into a architectural project. In the past weeks up until now we've been dealing with some kind of abstract objects, things that are pretty small scale. But now we can, with the architectural project, we can really start putting the skills we learned last week to good use. So skills such as working in paper space and layouts and presenting our designs at different scales and using the annotative property to scale our annotation objects properly. So all of those skills are critical to drafting an architectural project successfully. And the drawing we start during this week's videos will be the final project for the entire class when completed. So we will start them this week, start a portion of it, and then we will keep working on it throughout the remaining weeks of the class. So let's start that by creating a template that we can use to draw our project. So let's go to the, here we are on the Start tab in AutoCAD 2016, and let's go to the Templates pull down as we've done before. And we'll use the default template, the acad.dwt, and open that up. And the first thing we need to do here, since we're working in an architectural project, is to set the units correctly. So on the command line, I'm going to type in units, hit enter, and the drawing units dialog pops up. We've seen this before. So what we're going to do under the length option up here where it says type, we're going to change that to architectural. And notice that once we do that, the box just below it, the precision, is no longer reading in decimal but is reading in fractions of inches. So I'm going to change the precision to 1/32 of an inch. And then over on the right side where it says angle, we'll leave that as decimal degrees, but I'm going to change the precision so it has at least 2 decimal places of precision, and I'm just going to click OK. And not much happens dramatically, but take a look down at the bottom of your screen where the coordinate readout is, and now you'll see everything is being read out in feet and inches. And notice what the kind of marks there that show or designate what a foot is and what an inch is. So you have the little apostrophe that shows the feet, and then the double quote which designates the inch. So there we see everything reading out in imperial units, so-called imperial units, with feet and inches, and that's what's changing as I move my cursor around the screen. So when using imperial input in AutoCAD to put in distances like we've done before when we want to draw a line or something like that, it's a little important to kind of understand how AutoCAD is going to interpret your input. So with imperial units, if you just simply put in a 3, that means to AutoCAD 3 inches. If you put in the 3 with the apostrophe or the foot sign, of course, that's going to mean 3 feet. You can also put in 3 with the apostrophe 6. That means 3 feet 6 inches. And that can also be put in as 3.5 feet. And then you can also use actual fractions, such as down here, 3 feet 6 and 1/2 inches. Note that if you use the fraction, make sure you put in a dash between the whole inch and the fraction of an inch. And that can also be put in here on the bottom as 3 foot with the foot mark, 6.5, and that AutoCAD will understand that as 3 feet 6 and 1/2 inches. So several different ways to put information into AutoCAD using with imperial input. The important thing is to remember to use the apostrophe or the foot sign to denote when you want feet, and also to use the dash when you're separating fractions of inches from whole inches. All right, so let's go back to AutoCAD. Let's continue on setting up our template for our architectural project. And I'm going to set up my limits here. Now, as we saw in last week's exercise, really all of our printing and page kind of composition happens in paper space and layout space. The idea of setting limits in AutoCAD was really from the days when you did your printing right out of model space, when there was no layout or paper space. So it's really kind of not that necessary, but in some ways it does kind of help keep our drawing organized and lets us know just kind of how much space we're taking up with things. So I'm going to type in limits. Whoops, first of all I got to click on AutoCAD to start, make sure I'm in AutoCAD. So limits on the command line, enter. Lower left corner is 0, 0, so I'm going to enter to accept that. And now my upper right corner. And I'm going to put in for the upper right corner 288 feet, comma 192 feet. And then enter. And then go into my grid and type in L for limits. Grid display beyond limits, I'm going to type in N for no. And now I'm going to do a Z, enter A for zoom all, and there's our grid filling our defined limits. And as you see, as I move my cursor to the upper right hand corner, we get to be the 280 somewhat, 286, and the 192. So where did I get those numbers from? Well, what I'm doing here is I'm taking a standard drawing sheet, a standard sheet you would print out on in architecture, which would be 36 inches on the long side and 24 inches on the short side, and converting that to essentially converting that to a scale. I'm using 1/8 inch scale. So if 1 inch equals 8 feet in 1/8 inch scale, if I have 36 inches, 36 times 8 is 288 feet, and 24 inches times 8 is 192 feet. So that's where I got that from. So these limits essentially represent a 36 by 24 inch sheet if it was being printed at 1/8 scale. Now this doesn't mean we have to work in 1/8 scale, and in fact we probably won't in this exercise, but it just gives us something to kind of base our drawing on, and kind of controls our model space so that we can kind of work and not be having things going all over the place. All right, so with that done, I've made a couple of changes here. I've set my limits, I've changed my units, so not a bad time to save things. So I'm going to click on the Save As button. I'm going to change my file type from DWG to the AutoCAD DWT or template file type. It will default to my template folder that's defined in my options in AutoCAD, and I'm going to call this, put in my name, dash, and let's call this architectural, and then dash, and then template. And then just hit save. It comes up with the option to fill in some information about our templates. So normal English feed, that's pretty much color dependent plot styles. That's really all we need. Just I guess we can put in used for architectural projects. And then just hit OK. And there is our template up there on the tab. It gives us that name. The last thing that I'm going to do in this template for the time being is start making a couple of the layers. Now, this project, as I said, is going to be the final project for the entire semester, so we're going to do a lot of work in this drawing, and there are a lot of layers that will have to be made. And there is a PDF which you should download from the week 5 handouts that lists all the layers that will be needed in this project. And there's a page 2 also. So I'm not going to make all of these right now because I think you all understand the process of how to make them, but I do want to make a couple of them because of some of the exercises that I want to show you, and some of the techniques I want to show you for this week, so you can use them working with your existing conditions plan, which you'll be handing in for homework next week. But the thing to notice in this list of layers is the format. So there's a capital A, a dash, and then in capital letters something with 4 letters, another dash, and another something 4 letters. So this is based on the American Institute of Architects layering system, which is now part of the national CAD standards in the in the U.S. And this is the system they came up with for naming things. So A, the first letter you see, has to do with the discipline. So we see A meaning architectural, and that's really all we're really working with here, except there are a couple of S layers, which mean structural. And then the SHT layers, which essentially we're using in this case for creating a sheet border around our project, and we'll work on using those a little later. Then you'll see things divided up between plan and elevation. And then the next kind of designator you see, the next group of 4 characters, gets into specifics about what the object is. So here we have a elev wall, a plan wall, a plan interior, a plan window down here, and various things. And then in this handout, in this PDF, there are some descriptions over here so you can get an idea what these layers are being used for. So I'm going to make about 3 or 4 of these layers in my template. And to do that, we open up the layer properties. Nothing in this because it's from the basic ACAD template. Click on New. Put my caps lock on, and I'm going to call this A-plan-wall. And I'm going to set that color as cyan. And the line type is continuous, and it should be plottable, so that's there, that's fine. Let's create another layer, A-plan-wall-INTR for interior walls. I'm going to change that color to green. Go OK. A-plan-door. And I'm going to set that color as red. Again, these are all on the list on the PDF. You just have to look them, take a look at that, and you can fill all this information in. Plan WNDW for window. And that's going to be blue. And let's do one more for now. A-plan WNDW-sill. And that will also be blue, so we'll just leave that blue. Okay, so there's our layers. Some layers set up out of the, I guess, 30 or 40 that's on the list. We have at least a start. So with these layers in place, we can start doing some drawing, at least getting the building plan set up. So I'm going to close the layer manager. I'm going to save the template file, and then I'm going to close it, and then next we'll go back and start using it to actually do some drawing. So here we are at the Start tab, and as we've done before, if I go to the template pull down here, what we should see is that I have a architectural template DWT. And actually it looks like I have a couple of them. I must have made more than one. So I'm just going to click on the one that I know I just made, which is this one right here. And that opens up to our set limits, and we're set with our imperial units. And if I do the pull down, there should be the layers that I have made all ready to go. All right, so we're going to use this as a base to start talking about how to start drawing our architectural plan. So let's take a look at the plan we're going to be working with, and this is also a handout, a PDF handout on the week 5 handouts. So you can download this and take a look at it. But I just wanted to take a look at it to kind of talk about what it is we're going to be drawing and what it is to draw an architectural plan. So what is an architectural plan made up of? I mean, the basic elements that go into it are we have walls, we have these symbols that represent doors and windows, and then maybe some kind of equipment or appliances or plumbing fixtures like we see here. So really just kind of not a whole lot of different types of objects, but objects that don't exist as part of AutoCAD objects. So AutoCAD doesn't have a wall command, and it doesn't have a door or a window command. So, but as we've seen previously is that what it does do is provide us a lot of basic objects such as lines, arcs, circles, etc., which we can use to construct kind of more complex designs and objects. So really that's what we're going to be doing here, in that we don't have a wall command, but we do have another command in AutoCAD called the multi-line command, which essentially draws two parallel lines, which is really all that walls are. And then we can use the other simple AutoCAD graphical objects such as arcs, circles, polylines in the form of rectangles and such, and combine those into things called blocks, which we can use to represent things such as windows and doors and such. So let's go back to our AutoCAD drawing, and in here let's kind of I want to introduce the M-line or multi-line command. So the interesting thing is that multi-line does not exist in any of the commands that we have here. It's kind of a hidden command, but it can be accessed simply by typing in the command on the command line. So to access the multi-line command, just type in ML, and then notice what happens when we do that on the command line, the different kind of settings that pop up and the options that we have. So it tells us that there are current settings. There's a justification, which is set to top. There's a scale, which is set to 1. And there's a style involved. Now you can go and create your own multi-line styles, but we're only going to be using essentially just two parallel lines, so there's really no need to do that. We can just use the standard style. Scale of 1 means that the two lines, the two parallel lines, are just 1 inch apart. So that makes it easy for us to size things. If we need to make a 10-inch wall, the scale is 10. A 16-inch wall, the scale is 16, etc. And the justification, I'll explain that to you just right now in the process of kind of doing this here. So what I'm going to do is first just change the scale, type in S, enter, and I'll change our scale to say 18, enter. And then it asks for a start point. I'll just click and start dragging, and what you should see is that I am in fact dragging a couple of parallel lines. And notice that the justification is top, so if I click and as I'm moving from left to right, I am in fact pulling or dragging the top side of my parallel lines. So I'm going to hit enter to get out of that. And let me zoom in a little bit here. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm still on layer 0, so I'm just going to draw a regular line just as a way to kind of create some reference points, so you can kind of see how the multi-line behaves. I'll erase this multi-line here. I don't really need it. Pan over a little bit. And I'm going to set my active layer to A plan wall. Now I'm going to start my multi-line again, and it remembers the scale and everything else that we set, so it still has the 18-inch scale and justification of top. So I'm going to click on this end and drag from right to left. Now notice that the justification is still top, but because I'm dragging from right to left, I am in fact pulling the bottom side of the multi-line. So top and bottom is essentially a relative concept with multi-line. So again, if I come over this side and click and pull, now I am in fact pulling the top side of the multi-line. So this is just something you kind of have to get used to. If I go into M-line again and I change the justification by typing in J, and I change it to B or bottom, then of course if I click there, I'm dragging the bottom side. And if I start at the or start here and go from top to bottom, I'm pulling in fact the left side with justification on the bottom. And then if I start multi-line again and type in J for justification and change it to 0, 0 essentially is just the center line. So if I click here, I'm pulling right up the center line of of the multi-line. So it's 18 inches wide or 9 inches on either side of the zero justification. So with multi-line, you have to be kind of get used to what it means for the justification in terms of when you're which direction you're drawing it in, and also, of course, where you're measuring it from. Because if I needed to draw something where the outside dimension was 20 or 30 feet from here to here, I would need to make sure that I was drawing the outside of the wall, or essentially the top side of my multi-line. And we'll see how that works as we actually start to draw our plan for our existing conditions. So let's take a look at the handout one more time for the existing plan of our building, and I'm going to focus on this portion right around here. And we see that essentially this is almost a square, but it's really a rectangle, and I am interested at this dimension down here, and also this dimension over here. So the 29 feet across the front and 31 feet up the side. So let's go back to our AutoCAD drawing. Make sure that the plan wall layer is active. I'm going to back out a little bit here. And then I'm going to start my multi-line command. So ML. And my justification, my scale is actually right because the outside walls of that portion of our plan are in fact 18 inches or 1'6". But the justification, I'm going to start down in the lower left-hand corner. So I'm going to type in J, set my justification to B for bottom, and then click here and start dragging. And you'll see I'm dragging the bottom side of the multi-line. And I'm just going to put in my distance, so 29 feet, enter, and then just start going up. Again, with my polar tracking on, making sure I got a nice straight line heading perfectly vertical. Put in my distance 31 and the apostrophe for feet, and then come across the other way, so 29 feet. And then we can simply hit C for close, and there's the basic outside perimeter of our plan. Now notice that as I pass my cursor over this, that the entire object, it's all one object. So the multi-line is kind of like a polyline in that way, in that it is, once it places the object, no matter how many joints or vertices we have, it's considered, as far as AutoCAD's concerned, one continuous object. So that'll have benefits and some problems for us later on, but we'll see how to handle that. Let's go back to the plan again, and we see another wing that we have to place on here. And what I'm interested in here is this dimension, the 9'1" off the back here, and then the 18.8 across, and then the 26.8 down the side here. So 9'1" off of our plan that we just drew, the basic main portion of our building. 9'1", 18.8, and then 26.8 down the side. So let's go back to our, and also the important thing to notice here is that these walls are a little narrower. They're 1'4", where the original part of the building that we drew is 1'6" or 18 inches. These are 1'4" or 16 inches. So we got to take that into account. So let's go back to AutoCAD, and we need to start our mline command again. And now the scale is going to change, so type in S, enter. So the scale is now 16 inches. Oops, 16, enter. And now the justification, it's going to be, and again, this is something you got to kind of go over in your head. I think I want it to be at the top. So I'm going to try that and put that in. And then I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, hover over this corner, and then drag over this way and put in the 16. And I was wrong. Okay, so the justification needs to be the bottom. So let's do it again. ML, justification, B for bottom. Scale is right. Hover over this, drag over this way, put in 16, enter. There we go. And then it's 9 foot, so 9'1". And then I believe it was 18.8 across this way, so 18 feet 8 inches. And then down 26 feet 8 inches. And let's just pan down this way and then come right up and we'll touch that. Actually, I'm going to hold this off a minute because I'm going to show you how things work when we edit with multi-line. I'll hold that right there and then enter. Okay, so there we have our other wing. I can get rid of this little drawing that I did earlier as an example. Just E, enter, grab all that and go away. And so what I want to do is clean up some of these boundaries, some of these connections here, some of these joints between the original multi-line that I drew and this other wing that I drew here. So what should be able to work for us, multi-line is kind of an odd object in that not all of the modify commands work on it, but some do. So for instance, if I type in extend, EX, enter, and I select this as the place I want to extend to, and then I click on my multi-line here as I want to extend. Once I do that, notice what happens on the command line. It gives me some options. It tells me that I'm extending a multi-line and that I have a junction option, and the default is merged, and that is in fact what I want because I want this to join the other multi-line and break it, so trim it and connect to it. So I'm going to accept merged as the default, hit enter, and we see it goes in and cleans up nicely, creating a nice joint right there to the original multi-line. So I'm going to hit enter to get out of that. Now we have one more corner to clean up, and that's the other corner up here where we started our drawing. And let's see what happens if we try to use extend on this. Now again, remember I said multi-line is kind of an odd object and kind of behaves unusually, and not all these commands work all the time on it. So I'm going to start the extend command again. Extend, here's my boundary edge for the extend, hit enter, and I want to extend this line to it, and I want it to be merged, and oops, I don't know what happened there, but it's clearly not what I want to have happen. So I'm going to type in U for undo. So extend's not going to work there. What happens if I do trim? I'm going to type in TR, enter, and I'm going to say that these two lines on the multi-line are the part that's going to do the cutting. So I'm going to select this as my cutting edge and then enter, and then click here to get rid of it. And again, it's saying multi-line option, junction option, merge. Yeah, I do want it merged. So I hit this and it broke that away. So again, that's not doing what I want it to do. So undo and escape to get out of that. So the traditional or the standard extend or trim is not working in this condition. However, there are a collection of multi-line edit commands or modify commands that are designed specifically to work with the multi-line. So to start those, we type in MLEDIT and hit enter, and this brings up the multi-line edit tool. So this little palette of options that we see here, and I'm going to try in this, you'll see that the first column in this little table of options are for T's, or essentially where lines are crossing. Here's where one line is joining another, and then corner joints, and then add vertex, and then create cuts or openings. So the one I'm going to use here is this one called merged T down at the bottom. I'm going to click on that. It asks for the first multi-line, and essentially what it's asking for is the line that's going to be doing the cutting. So in this case, it is this line up here. And then the second multi-line is the line that's going to get cut, so I'll click on this, and that works nicely. It cleans that up and creates a nice joint in our walls between the two wings of our building. So we're done with that. We can hit enter and escape. All right, so we've got the outside perimeter walls all drawn of our plan. I'm going to save this. Click on Save, and it's going to ask me for a place to put it, and it's going to be saved as a DWG, so I'm not going to save it in the template file, but I do have under my documents something in the BAC, and for my BAC online class, and I'm going to, there seems to be a final project in there already, but I'm going to just change that, it's a different drawing entirely, and add my last name to the beginning of this. So plants on final project, and hit save, and now we see that's what pops up there on the tab. And that's where I'm going to stop in this video, and the next one we'll come back and we'll start working on the interior partitions and use multi-lines to create those. So come on back and we'll see you then.